Hi, good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining our fireside chat with Core Power. Today, we're joined by Jay Bellows. He's the president of Core Power. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, wonderful. So let's kick it off with a big picture question. I think it's a good way for people to become acquainted with the story if they're not already. Over the next 5 years, long term, how will your solutions help to accelerate the transition to call it a cleaner energy infrastructure?
Well, that's a good question. So I think there's so many ways actually, but I'll just start with some that are pretty big picture kind of type of applications. First is that our renewable goals are really hefty, right? And putting solar and wind and more hydro in and all other new emerging types of green energy is kind of the goal, right? And we're really looking to electrify our world as well. So adding renewables onto the grid and having an increased demand on the grid from EVs and charging and heat pumps and all the things that we're doing in the world. The truth is the only way that renewables are really going to work is if they're tied to storage. Mother Nature makes energy when she wants to, right? Not necessarily when we need it. And applying energy storage to those generation forms will allow the energy to be energy on demand at that point. And we'll be able to access that energy any time of day, any point of need that we have will be met just by pushing a button.
Yeah, that's right. There have been a lot of different opinions about how we can do that today. But everyone agrees that it's absolutely necessary for the flexibility of the grid moving forward, considering how much more demand is going to be allocated to to that existing infrastructure. So let's talk about the company. How about perhaps a brief overview for investors that are listening to the call today, what the company does, your key products, and how your business model works?
Sure. So Core Power is a U.S. battery manufacturer and solutions provider. We provide both chemistries and NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt, and lithium iron phosphate, LFP. One of the only companies that actually does both of those. And we do different form factors, different packets, modules. We can do a bunch of different things. We're building a very large facility in Buckeye, Arizona. Right now, it's poised to be 12 gigawatt hours, but there's probably going to be a release here coming soon, and we're looking at expansion in that realm as well. And we, as a battery manufacturer, we've been around for about 6 years. But as a solutions provider, we've been around for over 53 years. In fact, we're the most experienced energy storage solution provider in the world, been doing it longer than anybody else. We have about 12,000 deployments worldwide. Or I'm sorry, 1,200 deployments worldwide. It'd be great if it was 12,000. 1,200 deployments worldwide, including some really difficult locations like Antarctica, the North Pole, oil rigs, mountaintops, anywhere you can think of, we've kind of done it. And that mindset of being a true integrator solutions provider means that we can customize. We can ultimately, if a customer needs a triangle, we can build a triangle and fit it for them instead of trying to ram a square into that hole. So a lot of experience goes into it. We don't just have the mindset of a battery manufacturer. We have a mindset of a full solution. So it means that the batteries and the products that we develop and build go into the mindset of the solution, not just the solution has to be built around the battery. We do it all the way through. We're vertically integrated. So our solutions go, our own batteries go into our solutions that we build, soup to nuts here at our facilities. And then we have a full network operating center as well with a really long history of AI and computer learning going into when and how systems should operate, when it makes the most sense for financial purposes or disaster recovery, resiliency, redundancy. We have a whole weather application. So that long history, that experience really comes into play in our offerings. And I think it really sets us apart from the rest of our competition.
Yeah, I really like that analogy you gave. If a customer needs a triangle, we sell them a triangle. We don't try to make the square fit, right? And I think that's provides a lot of insight into how you conduct the business. So for people that are new to the model, what are like the key drivers, right? What would be the key metrics for us to keep an eye on over the coming years?
As far as the market is concerned, on the batteries or solutions, or what would be your, where was I go with that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, batteries, it's going to be safety is key. Obviously, that's the biggest thing for us out of the gate. our product is incredibly safe. And as you look at that from the battery into the solution, unlike other companies, it's completely seamless. We design and build all of the battery management software, all of that from the module BMS, battery management system, at the module level, into the rack level, into the master. That's all us. And then from there, it goes into the master controls and all of the controls inside of a solution. And then back to our NOC, we design it all. So it's all designed to work seamlessly, which gives us, a significant, a lot of weight in the safety realm as far as software and operations are concerned. And then beyond that, it's about energy density, size, weight. As is everything. If you look at computers, right? Big mainframes used to be the size of a building. Now they're, sitting in this laptop I'm talking to you on. Energy storage is that same thing. It's about getting as much energy in a small footprint as you possibly can, while keeping it safe. Managing heat and losses throughout the process. But it's really all about that. And our R&D is really exceptional. We're way out in front, looking at new chemistries, new ways of doing things. And again, bringing in our long-term kind of experience, it gives us that mindset of what's needed in the market as well. So our goal is to try to be a step ahead, throughout what our offerings are, kind of each year as we look through new products and new chemistries. It's really with that next step in mind consistently.
Yeah, fantastic. And I guess that brings us to the next topic of, as you're, putting on your long-term strategist hat, what drives adoption in the United States, in the EU, in Asia, and then further down the road, what drives adoption in the developing world?
Well, it's funny. They're not all that different, right? So adoption in the U.S. and the European markets, a lot of it's financial, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be a huge financial piece of this because, there's obviously an ROI in all of these systems. There's offtakes, PPAs, right? Power purchase agreements, net metering contracts, things like that, that are being assigned to energy storage, like there were to solar and wind and other things as well. So there's a big financial piece of that. Here in the States, we just, the IRA was just announced, so the Inflation Reduction Act. There's a lot of benefits towards energy storage in the Inflation Reduction Act. The manufacturing credits, there's an ITC, much like solar, but all these additional kickers in there as well. So really the US government did a great job of putting benefits in place to make sure that energy storage grows. So in those markets, financials are a really big piece, but there's other things as well. We call it, or I like to call it, the benefit stack of energy storage, right? There's resiliency, redundancy. There's all of these additional things, peak avoidance, power quality, disaster recovery is a big one. So there's all of these additional things that energy storage can do. If you really think about them being more like a battery, truly like a battery that goes in a phone or, a child's toy, something like that. If you think about storage in that light and what it can do at a much grander scale, those are the driving forces, right? EV charging's coming online soon, and it is here, but not nearly what it's going to be. The amount of demand on the electrical grid is going to be really hefty. It's going to grow exponentially. That growth is going to need energy on demand, as we talked about earlier. So having that in the ESS form is going to be huge, and having it generated from generation points like renewable energy. If we want to do that, that's how we're going to have to do that whole process. The generation is going to have to happen, when it's allowed, when the sun's out, when the wind's blowing, and it's going to have to go into storage and then be accessible when everybody comes home from work, plugs their cars in or turns their heat pumps on or whatever might be driving the consumption. So that's a real, I would say that's the market driver, in the US and Europe and kind of, the kind of first world countries. As you go into the other areas, the lack of power quality is going to be a big one, right? So we work with a couple of groups that are doing hospitals in third world countries and working on solutions that are, we have a mobile company that was a subsidiary of ours called Nomad. Nomad's a mobile energy storage system at the utility scale. So 2 megawatt hours rolling down the road, right? And so as you look at that for third world countries or the hospitals that I was just talking about, the electrical grid, if there is one, is not reliable, right? They have brownouts and blackouts all the time. What that does to sensitive equipment ultimately it destroys it, right? So if you have an MRI machine or something like that, it doesn't last long because the power quality is really poor. So bringing in storage to that and having storage be the power quality kind of, or just really making the power quality secure and pure so that there aren't brownouts or blackouts, there's no drops in voltages, is a big piece of that. And as those countries start to use renewables, that same application comes in, just like here in the States, where adding storage to that allows that kind of longevity to the consumption of that energy being generated from renewables. So I think it's not all that different. The power quality is the big piece of it. I think that's really going to be in demand. It's already showing itself that way as well. So,
we've heard from quite a few companies about the government's role in incubating manufacturing and development in the United States. Could you speak a little bit to manufacturing in the United States and your viewpoint?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're looking at domesticating the entirety of our process, right? Supply chain, everything, bringing it here to the States. It's a big deal. We don't want to be relying on other countries and supply chain. We've seen what's happened in the last couple of years. Supply chain's gotten really out of control. It's no one's fault, right? The pandemic was really the driver in that, but we want to avoid that as much as possible. We want to bring the entirety of that here to the States. We want to drive employment here, really grow jobs and opportunities here in the States in this really, I would say, emerging market, emerging field. And a lot of people look at it that way. It's hard to say that, having been around for so long in the industry, but it really is. We're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg at this point. And if you've done any research on energy storage, the market is going to be massive. All of the projections, they double pretty much every year. And as you look back on some of the ones, it's almost laughable what they projected this year to be from last year, right? It's already growing in a massive way. So, I think, for us, that domesticated product is a big deal. We want to be able to manufacture as much of it as we can. We want to supply to as many domestic companies as we can and get our product out, into the market so that we can support the local growth and support renewable growth and all of the kind of electrification of our country that we're trying and aiming to do. We want to be a big part of that and make sure that there's no blips in the path to get there.
Yeah, we share the viewpoint that it's important to incubate these industries now so that we have a real mature industry in the coming years for these next generation technologies. You mentioned before that you're vertically integrated. Do you think that's a competitive advantage, particularly when other U.S. players are not?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's not just a competitive advantage. It should, for customers, off-takers, people that we have strategic relationships with, it should be a big deal, because the truth is that we're not trying to make, all these different parts and pieces work together. They're already designed to do so. So, as far as I talked earlier about the safety piece of that, that's not something anybody should take lightly. Our systems are designed, again, with those 53 years of history and experience into them. And that goes all the way down to our cell manufacturing. So all of that is a big piece in that light, in the form of safety. I think that's a huge deal. I also think that having that vertical integration also means it's a one-stop shop, right? So you're not pointing fingers at other vendors, other manufacturers in the process, saying it's their fault or whatever. We're one throat to choke, so to say, right? If there's ever an issue, call us. We're on it, and we have a 24/7, 365 network operating center here that really is state of the art. We are actively involved in all of our systems all over the world. We can maintain, monitor, operate. We can do everything you can think of from a distance. So if if there's ever an issue, we're way out ahead of it. We usually know before the customer does, and oftentimes can just fix it. Before
That's funny. I hadn't heard that before. One throat to choke. That's that's on your letterhead.
It just shows how much younger than me you are. So that I've known for a long time. But yeah, no, it's that vertical integration is huge, and it really goes beyond just the install of the system. It goes into the operation of the system as well, right? So we're going to maintain and make sure that system operates the way it's supposed to for the length, or the duration of its operational capacity. So if you're looking at a 25-year system, we're there with you, holding your hand all the way through those 25 years, making sure that it operates and works the way it's supposed to in a safe and productive way.
So let's talk about your addressable market and your key markets. Do you think about your key markets in terms of geography, or do you think about it in terms of, areas of operation, areas of expertise, industry? I mean, how are you thinking about your go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite questions, I have to tell you, because everybody says, well, what are you going to focus on? My answer is energy storage.
Energy storage.
So, the truth is, we build systems as small as a couple hundred kilowatt hours and as large as gigawatt hour scale. So for us, I think, and if you really understand the market, you see that energy storage is kind of expanding in where it goes in. And I think it's important for the grid that it does that. We want to diversify these assets as much as possible, right? So we want it at the C&I level. It's important to be able to island, a large shopping facility or a huge manufacturer. We're working with automobile manufacturers and a lot of different groups that have a huge electrical demand, so that we can say, okay, there's a power source here. When there's a peak event that happens, or the utility's starting to drain out, because we're starting to see rolling blackouts, rolling brownouts that are becoming a problem across the country right now. For those manufacturing facilities to be able to island the entirety of the operation, in less than a cycle, meaning less than 16 milliseconds, that means that no one even sees a light blink, right? That's like, you'd be able to do that. It supports the manufacturer, but the utility gets the ability to avoid that large load demand, right? That's huge. And then you look at the utility level, having that be, whether that's one large facility that they can operate and maintain that has a huge impact on the demands curve for the day or the year or the month, or you diversify it and you spread it out across the grid, and you have a fleet managed system where it's at the the neighborhood level, right? And so there's a system there that allows 10 hours of autonomy for the neighborhood. That neighborhood in a disaster event, right, like an ice storm here in the Northeast, or wind from a hurricane or tornado in other parts of the country, having that ability to be redundant and resilient in those locations helps the utility, because the utility doesn't have to bring in trucks from neighboring utilities to help them fix the lines. They can say, okay, I have a whole disaster recovery plan now. I know that I have 2 hours of autonomy there, 8 hours there, 10 hours here, and they can plan their disaster recovery schemes. So, there's so many ways that this is going to grow here in the United States, actually across the world, that it, I think that it would be silly of us to try to focus on just one little thing. I mean, EV charging, right? I think if you look at EV charging as a whole, there's almost 300 million registered internal combustion engines on the road here in the United States today. 300 million. And we're saying by 2035, we want to be 100% electric. All of those internal combustion engines are their own generators today, right? They generate all their own electricity today using gas. We're going to get rid of that. They're all going to be consumers of the grid. That's a monstrous offtake of energy, right? So looking at EV charging, making those EV charging facilities independent with generation, with storage, and then the utility can access that storage, in an offtake agreement, and then be able to use it there as well. So there's all these ways that all of the industries can play together and make it a grid that, supports us and gives us what we need for resiliency and redundancy as well. So I think you're going to see a lot, and I didn't even touch the home systems, right? So there's so many kind of realms that they're going into, just as far as use of energy storage, and we're going to be a big part of all of those.
Yeah, I think you touched on something very important there, because companies can use this, neighborhoods can use this to mitigate disruption. But when power is flowing fine, it provides a tremendous amount of flexibility to the grid.
Yep.
Right. So this is very likely the direction that things are going.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would add to that too, that there's the financial model is really, really solid, right? So unlike solar, right? When solar came in, people were putting solar on their house. It had a feel good aspect of it, right? Because the financials didn't work really well. And then in the Obama administration, they came out with solar projects, right? And solar supporting ITCs and things like that. In fact, the SPEED program, which was the first solar program that came out, had incredible numbers, like 56 cents a kilowatt generation for 25 years. They were incredible. And that push made it viable, financially viable. Well, storage before the IRA, before the ITCs, was already financially viable. It was between 4 and 6 year ROI, sometimes better. And so now you add the IRA to it, and it just, it gives it a turbo boost. Now you're looking at between 1 and 4 years return on investment on a pretty sizable product that lasts 20 plus years. It's really impressive.
Yes, yes, it is. Can you speak just briefly to some key partnerships that they have and how you envision them influencing your business long term?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've made some announcements on our strategic investors, and we have MSAs in place as well, master supply agreements. So for us, those strategic relationships are really, really important, right? So those companies invested in us. They're going to be off-takers of our product, both on the solution side and on the battery side. It's a big deal to have those types of arrangements and agreements and relationships out there. And we work with a lot of them for other reasons beyond just offtake, right? So there's supply chain for us, keeping that domestic, as much as possible, recycling, kind of taking product and being able to gather and harness the elemental pieces of those again is going to be huge for supply chain. So our strategics are a big deal for us. And we're probably going to be announcing a couple more here over the next year or so, but those types of agreements where there's a guaranteed supply to those customers and a guaranteed relationship to us is something that's, I think essential for anyone in this industry. And the fact is it's beneficial to both sides. That we already know that there's not enough product in the market. We're already seeing it. The kind of early thoughts that we were going to run out, or the demand would outweigh the supply in about 2024. We're seeing it today. It's already happening in 2023. It's only going to get worse. And even as we put more and more manufacturing kind of on the grid and get more product into the market demands are growing in such a way that I don't know that we're going to be able to catch up here in the next 10 years or so. So having that type of demand is really great, and having the relationships that go along with the demand is really key for both sides. So we're really proud of the relationships we have and look to kind of grow and foster those.
Outstanding. Well, this has been, from my point of view, an excellent use of time. I think that our audience would agree. Thank you so much for joining us at our conference this afternoon. I look forward to having you back again very soon.
Excellent. Thank you very much for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.